But anyway, I'm going to speak very quickly on behalf of myself and Dr. Izabela Sieselska-Robel, who is our textile science professor, who sadly cannot be with us here today. She's traveling due to a family emergency. But I just very quickly want to feed in a few thoughts that you will hear a lot more about from the speakers who are going to follow in these 5-minute rounds, and for our keynotes, from our keynote speaker as well. Creating a sound circular textile economy, be it here in Rhode Island or elsewhere. Now, we don't really need to answer these questions with much detail because I think we know the answer to this, but the time is now. It is time to start work. We have talked a lot, we have researched a lot, we have made a lot of progress, but now is the time to do things. And Senator Whitehouse would have agreed at this point because he just recently started his ecological speeches from the floor. Again, after a year hiatus, he stopped after his 279th speech on matters ecological last year, but now started again in the spring because things are not moving quickly enough. So the idea is that anything we can do locally can be grown globally, and this applies to recycling, this applies to manufacturing, this applies to finances and business as well. Find a local solution, you can take it on the road. We have been talking, for example, with a delegation from Ghana who has an enormous plastic bottle waste problem due to drinking water issues there. One university in Ghana can probably start its own textile industry based on the polyester they can create from the bottles they produce. Why not? And so Dr. Robel is already on the job, and there are actually companies in the back here who are doing very similar things. So we would invite the collaboration there, whether it be plastic bottles, sheets, nets, sails, you name it. Let's start turning it into pellets and back into products. And Dr. Robel is not hard to find. She will be here. And I would heavily recommend a conversation. The next step we are going to try and take is that we're going to try and begin a 7-year project somewhere around the end of this year. And so you'll be hearing from me. Now I also know where to find you. And we will be looking to start tabletopping these things, wargaming them, if you will, trying to see what we can do about creating the industry, but not just the industry, also the marketing and the consumer interest. So we're getting everybody involved. And the threshold we have to cross is, of course, the consumer interest one, apart from everything else. I tell my students now, I remember days when you reserved a table in a restaurant and you were asked smoking or non-smoking. I remember smoking, non-smoking on airplanes. That's how old I am. Maybe that's the kind of threshold we need to cross with this. But anyway, just for fun, a little statistic up there. If we had more time, I would play a little game and ask you to guess how many plastic bottles in one of Mark's running shirts, right? It's 9. So if you're producing tons of bottles in your one university, you can make some shirts for Mark, right? That's right. But we'll start looking at input streams from various places. It doesn't all have to be quote-unquote waste. None of it is actually waste. It's all resource. But we can go from the industry side. We can go from the consumer side. We can go from the leftover merchandise side. We can come in anywhere at this point. And that's why the collaborative efforts on this are going to actually be kind of fun. There's a slightly more complex version of the previous diagram just to keep you entertained. But the point actually with a manic diagram like this is really to point out that it's all there. There's really not a lot of inventing that needs to be done here. There's really not a lot of deep research that needs to be done. We know what to do. And sadly and shamefully, as somebody who's been teaching in this field for 30 years, we knew this a long time ago. Now's the time to act, and now's the time to do with what we have. And so we can create any number of outcomes, and one of the more important outcomes will be to be a model, where we can be a model for other communities, for other countries, for other states, and we can start showing people how this is done. Key word again, doing. So basically, that's my 5 minutes. If you're in industry, how can we help? If you're a student, how can we help? How can you help us? How can we help you? And I really, really hope you come knocking on my door. Thank you very much.